Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us for today's NCARB Live webinar. I'm Jenny Kawecki. I'm on NCARB's Marketing Communications team, and I'll be your moderator today. So during today's webinar, we're going to hear from our Assistant Vice President of Programs, Michelle Cohn, and our Experience Committee Chair, Gabriella Bermea, on the upcoming changes to the Architectural Experience Program, or AXP, that will go into effect on November 18th, 2025. So we'll have a short presentation from Michelle and Gabriella, and then we'll do a live Q&A where we'll answer your questions. So if you have questions at any time, feel free to put them in the Q&A tool in the webinar, and we'll get to as many as we can during the webinar today. But for now, I'll ask our panelists to introduce themselves. So Michelle, why don't you introduce yourself first?
And thank you everyone who has logged in today for this webinar. Great to have you with us. So as Jenny mentioned, I work in NCARB's Programs Department where I'm the Assistant Vice President for Assessment. And so that includes both our experience and our examination program. So some of you might have seen me on past NCARB Lives talking about the ARE, but I'm glad to be with you here today talking about AXP and what to expect in the months ahead. Gabriella?
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, all. My name is Gabriella Bermea. I am coming from Austin, Texas. I serve as the Experience Committee Chair. This is my second year in that term. I'm very grateful to have gotten to work with a committee that represents the licensure candidates to the seasoned professionals. And we're really excited about the work that was done in the last year and to share that with you all.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you both for joining us today. So I think we'll go ahead and go into the presentation if you want to get us started, Michelle. And as a reminder to everyone, you can put your questions in the Q&A tool at any point. And if you don't watch the whole webinar, if you have to leave, we'll have a recording on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days.
Great. Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and get started here. All right, so as Jenny previewed for everyone, we are here to talk about AXP Updates, which will be launching on November 18th, so coming up here in a few months. And those updates include three main topics, and we're going to talk about each of those as we go through our presentation today. But at a high level, we're going to be talking about refreshed descriptions for these 6 experience areas. We're going to talk about a new reporting policy for reporting your AXP hours. And we're going to talk about expanded opportunities for continuing education, which is one of our opportunities in setting O. So Gabriella, I think you wanted to walk us through the experience area descriptions.
Absolutely. So to kick us off in that first category, the idea is to align the AXP with the competency standard for architects. So experience areas will no longer be described by the 96 tasks as you're looking at those AXP forms. Instead, the descriptions will reflect the capabilities described in the competency standards. So you'll see those 16 competency standards come through in your AXP updated group. This creates a focus on the core knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors needed for initial licensure. Next slide, Michelle. Thank you. So if you're asking yourself what stays the same, the program structure will remain as is. There will still be 6 experience areas and the 2 experience settings of A and O. The required hours will remain the same based on your jurisdiction that you are testing in. All earned AXP credit will remain as is. And the AXP portfolio will also be an option for our candidates who choose to take that path, where you can submit the work evidence associated with the 96 tasks. Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to jump into the reporting department.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabriella, you were mentioning that all earned AXP credits stays the same. And we're going to expand on that in just a moment now, because for some candidates, they might actually gain a little bit of credit. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. So this is the new reporting policy, again, starting November 18th. Candidates who report experience gained within the past 12 months will earn 100% credit. So right now, this 100% credit is for experience gained within the past 8 months. So this is an expansion on that, now up to 12 months back. And then the second update is that experience gained more than 12 months ago. So you've gained your experience, but now it's been a full year, and now you're just reporting that experience. So experience that is 12 months old and as far back as you've earned it, will gain you 75% credit in AXP. So remember, the current policy is that experience gained between 8 months ago up to 5 years earns you 50% credit. So again, this is now an increase. Now we're looking at 75% credit, and we're removing that 5-year limit on experience that's been gained in the past. So this is an area that I think for some candidates, not only are you keeping the AXP credit that you've earned, you might actually be earning more credit now, as this policy will be retroactive for all candidates who are currently in process or just entering the AXP program. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples of how this might impact you, depending on where you are and the kinds of experience that you've been reporting throughout AXP. So if you are someone who always reports your experience within, the last several months of earning it, certainly within that current 8-month limitation, then all of your experience has already been approved at 100%. So this new policy won't impact you. So that is an awesome habit to be in. Keep submitting those hours regularly. Just keep doing the same things that you're doing, and you are on your way. Now, another group of candidates who won't see any impact from this policy, candidates who actually have completed AXP. And perhaps you're not licensed yet. Maybe you're still in the midst of taking your exams. But if you have completed AXP, then good job. That is great. But know that your hours are not going to be updated retroactively because you are complete with the program. So again, reinforcing that the updates that are retroactive are for our candidates who are in process with the program, but not yet complete with the program. Let's look at a couple other examples. Perhaps you are someone who has existing experience that's been approved in your AXP experience reports that has been approved for 50% credit. Okay, so you might be wondering, okay, this retroactive thing, more credit, what does that look like exactly? So I've got a picture of that for everyone to look at. So this is a graphic that looks at what is our current policy. And so this yellowish bar on the right is, 8 months back from where we are here in July, 100% credit in our current policy. And then in the gray bar to the left, of course, is older experience up to 5 years back, 50% credit. In our new policy launching November 18th, you can see this yellow bar has now expanded. That now experience earned up to 12 months back earns 100% credit. And the kind of look back older than 12 months is now 75% credit. So again, looking at our candidate who has some existing experience that had been approved for 50%, if all of that existing experience is at least a year old, so in this section of our diagram, then those 50% credit hours will be automatically updated to 75% credit. So that is a great positive impact for all of the candidates with those hours, again, that were submitted at least a year after earning them. Now, let's say you have hours that had received 50% credit, but they were submitted between 8 and 12 months of earning them. So all of those hours are entirely in this section of our diagram. Then those 50% credit hours will be automatically updated to 100% credit. So that's definitely a good news story for candidates in that, in that situation. Okay, the candidates that I want to focus on here are ones where you've reported hours that are more than 8 months old, but also maybe go back past 12 months old, right? So kind of straddling these two, the yellow bar and the gray bar in this diagram. So in this case, your credit hours actually straddle two new sections in our future policy that's going to be implemented in November. So you can see here, those hours are actually split between 100% credit and 75% credit. So this is something that this experience report might need to be manually updated. We are currently working with our internal teams to explore the process, some specific internal processes, but know that ultimately your credit hours, some of them will be upgraded to 75% credit, and some will be upgraded to 100% credit in alignment with the future policy. But know that you'll be receiving a little bit more information on that as we move forward. But ultimately, this retroactive part of the policy, it will impact you as well to make sure that we get you the credit, per the new policy of 100% credit for hours that are 12 months old and 75% for the others. All right, we want to look at another situation here, which is, and actually I've met some candidates recently who have experience that's even older than 5 years, and they never submitted it because in our current policy, those hours don't provide any credit in AXP. Well, for all of you out there, you can now submit that experience, or I should say you can submit it after November 18th, and it will be worth 75% credit. So again, a really good news story for these candidates. What I would recommend, rather than submitting that now and then waiting for it to be retroactively updated, is I would say take the next few months to kind of gather your documentation about this experience, get ready for submitting it. My guess is since it is older than 5 years, you might need to have some conversations with your supervisor or supervisors, plural, about what that experience is, because remember, it's the same policy. A supervisor will need to sign off on that experience. So I would take the next several months to just get ready to submit this older experience. Talk with your supervisors, make sure that they're ready. And then starting November 18th, you'll be able to submit that experience that's more than 5 years old, and you'll get that 75% credit after it's approved. Now, we know that for some candidates who do have that older experience, you might have been thinking, oh, I guess the AXP portfolio is the path for me. And Gabriella mentioned a moment ago that that program will continue to exist, and that will continue to require exhibits that align with the 96 tasks. So after November 18th, that portfolio will still be an option for candidates who want to go that path, but know that it will no longer be the only option for candidates with that older experience. So again, you'll have a couple different ways to move forward with our experience program. Okay, that was a lot on reporting experience. So Gabriella, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about our other updates.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about continuing education and setting O specifically. So the current opportunity as it lies today is AIA courses are eligible for HSW. This requires an AIA membership in order to access the course transcript. So when we were given our charges on what to study for this, our committee came up with a recommendation of, Michelle, if you want to pull the next piece up. Awesome. An expanded opportunity. So to really open up the course providers that are pre-approved by NCARB provide these free transcripts for our licensure candidates to be able to qualify in setting O. We will have more information on this as we develop further into the fall. And for the guideline updates, the 2 versions are available now, so you can start to prep as you go into the next phase. So if you're actively reporting those hours, keep using that current version, keep holding on to it. And as we move forward into the future, be sure to start planning ahead. Review this new version, establish that supervisor relationship. If you have since moved to a new firm or you're in a new location, you'll have these revised descriptions with each experience area, so you can take that into account today with the new reporting policy and the continuing education settings in operation. The new continuing education opportunities in setting O. Wonderful.
Great. Well, I think that sums up our presentation for today. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and we'll turn it back over to you, Jenny.
All right, great. Thank you both so much for that presentation. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our Q&A. I see some of you are already putting your questions in the Q&A, but as a reminder, if you do have a question, go ahead and drop it in that Q&A tool. We'll get to as many as we can. So our first question, and I will toss this one to you, Michelle. So our viewer is currently completing the AXP portfolio, and they're wondering if under the new policy, they can maybe combine the AXP portfolio that they've already completed with doing hours. Is that an option?
Oh, that is a great question. And the answer is no. Our candidates cannot combine portfolio with hours. And so that has always been an either or plan for our candidates. And so that isn't changing with these updates. The policy will still remain that in order to complete the experience program, candidates should either log hours, and again, that's the 3,740 hours across the 6 experience areas, or a candidate can complete the AXP portfolio. So I realize for candidates who are in progress with a portfolio, I know it's a lot of work to put those portfolios together. You might be wondering, well, shoot, what should I do now? I think that's a great conversation with your supervisor. Take a look at, hey, how much of the portfolio have you put together already? Are you, pretty well on your way to completing it? You might want to just kind of get that done, wrap it up if it's already in progress. If you're someone who is just at the very beginning of this, just starting to think about, well, what exhibits would I pull together? It's definitely worth considering, hey, actually, what experience do I have now that I know I can get 75% credit for that older experience? Is that maybe an option that I could pursue instead? So I definitely recommend to candidates, review your experience, meet with your supervisor, let them, help you figure out those next steps as you move forward.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. So Gabriella, as the chair of the experience committee, should candidates expect more AXP changes coming soon? Do you have a timeline for announcing future AXP changes? What can you tell our viewers about that?
Right now, our primary focus is launching these right now in the fall. We'll continue on with our charges that are given by the board year by year that can develop into things in the future. But for right now, I want to keep our eyes just on the AXP updates that have been coming and will come in the fall.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question, a great question that I've heard already from a lot of candidates. Will I lose any AXP credit as a result of these changes? And Michelle, I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
Sure, that's an easy one actually, and the answer is no. No one will be losing AXP credit as a result of these changes. As I described during the presentation, we do expect some candidates to actually gain AXP credit, right? As those older reports are retroactively updated from 50% to 75%, or in some cases 100%. So no one will be losing any credit as a result of these changes.
It's a great, happy answer for everyone watching. Nothing to stress about. No losing hours, no reorganizing hours. Your hours are staying the same unless they're getting bigger. So that's a positive thing. Okay, next question. Gabriella, will this affect people who are just starting the AXP?
It will if you are not timely on putting together your supervisor reports, right? So what I'd really encourage you to do is sit with your supervisor, look at that constant 6 to 12 month cycle, if not even less, even a shorter cycle, to log those hours in a timely manner. Now, again, if you're from that 1 year onward, that's great. If you are not timely at logging your experience hours, like I was my first internship, you will not lose as large of an amount of time as there have been in the past. So that's a great way that we are aiming to increase the accessibility in the hours and the opportunity for our licensure candidates. So if you're doing it today, not necessarily, unless you wait a year from now, then it'll affect your hours.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question. Michelle, does the change to the Setting O CE opportunity change how many hours candidates can earn through that opportunity?
Yeah, and actually that is one thing that we didn't highlight during our presentation, is that currently candidates in, if you look into the Setting O opportunities, so they're detailed in the AXP guidelines, you'll see that candidates can earn up to 20 hours per experience area by taking CE courses that are qualified for HSW. So has to be an HSW course, but yes, up to 20 hours per experience area. And yeah, with, and you can do that for all 6 experience areas. So that is not changing. The only thing that's changing is that we're expanding the opportunities through which you can get those 20 hours per experience area. So as Gabriella mentioned, that is looking at course providers beyond AIA, AIA courses will continue to be accepted after November 18th. So again, we're not eliminating anything through these changes. The AIA courses will continue to be accepted, but we will be working with course providers this fall to pre-approve other providers who we know frequently provide course transcripts at no cost to candidates. And so for us, this really is a win-win to be able to keep doing what we're doing, but also be able to do more.
Great. Okay. Our next question, for candidates who are in that group of candidates who have experience that's older than 5 years and are interested in submitting it once this change goes into effect, do they still need their supervisor from way back when to approve it as part one? And then as part two, is there anything they can do if that supervisor maybe has retired or they're no longer in contact, or even if they passed away, to get credit for those hours? And I don't know, Gabriella, you want to start, and then maybe Michelle, you can chime in as well.
Yeah, I think to the first piece, yes, you are going to start engaging with your supervisor as soon as possible. That's where Michelle gave the really great advice. This isn't rolling out until November, so maybe now's the time to start looking back at those timesheets or requesting them from administrative staff. But Michelle, I'll let you answer the second half of that question. That's up to you.
Sure. Yeah. So you will need a supervisor to sign off on those hours for sure. That again, that policy is not going away. I think if this is a firm that sounds like this person, doesn't work at that firm anymore, hasn't been in touch with their supervisor. So again, that brings us back to like, well, you got some time now to look at your supervisor again, reestablish contact. If it's someone who you've completely lost touch with them, and we do hear this sometimes that this supervisor has passed away, really think back to, well, is there someone else who I worked with regularly at that firm who had some amount of supervisory control over the work that you were doing, right? Because that is really the important part of the supervisor candidate relationship, is that your supervisor has direct knowledge and has that responsibility for what it is that you were doing as you were gaining competence. So it'll be important to think about who else at the firm could serve in that role. Occasionally, I do talk to candidates who say it was a super small firm. The firm owner, it was me and just this other person, and the firm owner has passed away. And unfortunately, there is no great answer to that situation. Sometimes you're just not able to get that experience approved. And that I know can be a super frustrating situation. So certainly our advice there is always moving forward, just make sure that you always get those hours submitted and approved regularly. So for that look back, I think it's going to vary a little bit for everyone, depending on what was your employment situation at that time. But yeah, like Gabriella said, use these next several months to reconnect with people as needed. Hopefully this is a good news situation that, hopefully your past supervisors would be willing to, come back out and support you in this to help you, move closer to getting licensed.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. All right, our next question. So I know we've been focused on the reporting requirement, which obviously there are a lot of questions about. But another big change that we did talk about earlier is removing those tasks from the experience area descriptions and aligning it with the new competency standard. So Gabriella, can you talk a little bit more in depth about how the experience areas are now tied to the competencies instead of the tasks, and what that really means for candidates?
Absolutely. So we actually just came back from the Licensing Advisor Summit, and Michelle and Jeremy had a really great session on determining what these two mean. So if you look at the competency standard, that's why it's being released early, so you can take a look and start to do homework with your supervisor. It is so much broader than where the initial tasks were. Where the tasks were initially developed as a checkbox tool where you could go through these 6 experience areas, the competency alignment is now available so that our candidates can think about their licensure experience as a holistic process. So rather than asking yourself, can you do an urban development plan, or can you send out public documents? Well, maybe the question now is, are you utilizing a greater a greater thought process to how to design a building, right? You're developing those competencies and tying them to what you're doing day to day, because we all know hours in our seats do not necessarily equivalent to meeting those experience areas. You do want to be intentional about your time and intentional with your supervisor about what it is your career path is charting.
Great. Thank you. And I guess as a follow-up to that, what about the AXP portfolio? Because the AXP portfolio, candidates submit exhibits of their work that are tied to those tasks. Will that change as well, or is that still going to be tied to the tasks? And I don't know if Gabriella, if you want to chime in on that one as well as a follow-up.
And Michelle, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Yes. Right. The AXP portfolio is not changing. And so for that, candidates will still need to submit exhibits tied to those 96 tasks. Right. And so that is will remain a little bit more of a prescriptive program where it is about these 96 tasks and thinking about what exhibits can provide that documentation that you know how to do each of those things. Will that alter down the road? I don't know. That might be something that we might explore as we continue our work with the Experience Committee this year. But with the current program and the changes launching November 18th, the AXP portfolio will remain as it is currently, which is about those exhibits, the 96 tasks, whereas candidates who are reporting those hours, as Gabriella mentioned, it is this opportunity to just think more broadly, kind of think more about what is the outcome, right? After I have been working for, whatever is the amount of time that you're reporting here, thinking about now, what am I able to really do kind of from a broad perspective? And, certainly am I getting closer to being competent in all of the things that an architect needs to be able to do.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, the next question is a little bit on the technical record side. So Michelle, this one I think is for you. Right now, bulk reports are a 6-month maximum period. Is that going to change to a 12-month maximum period under the new policy?
Yes, that is correct. So where our current system can only accept reports in 6-month chunks, moving forward after November 18th, candidates will be able to submit basically 2 different size reports, up to 12 months worth of hours for 100% credit, and then a report of however long it needs to be to report those hours for 75% credit.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. How will these changes impact architects who are reporting 2 times AXP for the certification path under the education alternative? And Gabriella, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'd say is keep logging your hours. There's nothing really in the AXP framework infrastructure that's going to change in any way other than the allowable time for you to calculate that. So if you are in your 2 times AXP and you missed it from year 3 to year 5, now's your time to log it. Go ahead and start making those connections and relog it back to try to get to that 2 AXP. Although if you are doing anything from today on, it's not going to affect your hours or double them unless you are not in that 1-year category. No, Michelle, if you had anything to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, remembering that folks who are completing the 2 times AXP path are already licensed. And so these are our folks who are now looking to gain the NCARB certificate. And typically because they have, they followed a different educational path. And so the 2 times AXP is about kind of getting them kind of back onto meeting those requirements for the NCARB certificate. So those folks are essentially, you're always reporting your hours retroactively as a licensed architect. So for you, yes, you're going to look at the AXP guidelines and you also are going to see competencies instead of the specific task descriptions, but you'll be able to continue completing 2 times AXP as you are today.
And I will just clarify that the reporting policy does not apply to architects who are completing that 2 times AXP program. So that will continue to be true. So if you are a licensed architect and you're reporting your experience for that 2x AXP program, the reporting policy will not affect you when it changes. And then as a follow-up to that 2x AXP question, if candidates know they're going to go through that 2x AXP path in the future once they are licensed, should they report those extra hours now? Like, will that help them in the future, or does it matter? And I don't know which one of you would like to tackle that question. Maybe Michelle.
Sure. Well, we often do advise candidates that even if you've completed AXP, if you're still taking your exams, I mean, you still want to be keeping your record active. You may as well continue to be reporting those hours and continue to have those kind of in your record. Because, a future board might say, oh, wait, hold on, you need to have some additional experience here. I can't, 2x AXP, that, that adds up to 7,000 some hours. So that still might be beyond what you earned when you were completing AXP the first time around. But, as Jenny said, if you are working towards getting the NCARB certificate as a licensed architect, since you don't need to adhere to that reporting policy about, the 12-month and the 75% and all of that, you are able to kind of document those hours even post-licensure in just, a bulk report. So, and I'm sorry, I've lost track a little bit of the original question.
I think you answered it.
There.
All right, great. Our next question. So we talked about the tasks and the competencies, but Gabriella, if somebody who just really likes the tasks and wants to continue referencing them, can they?
Yeah, there's no reason why you can't. Now, Michelle had a really great metaphor for it. You think about a performance spec versus a prescriptive spec. If you have something that is, these are the overarching goals we want you to reach, that is a much broader tent for those who need that kind of one-on-one time. If you need the prescriptive tasks, those always they're still going to be valid. They still fall under our 6 experience areas. That's what's great about those buckets not changing. But I'd encourage you all as a candidate and as supervisor, make sure you're getting into that next level of depth to really understand and build competency in your experience.
Great. And I'll just add on to that too, and yes, echoing what Gabriella said, those tasks, they'll still be listed in the guidelines as part of the AXP portfolio. So certainly if you're interested, you'll still be able to find them. But that being said, the NCARB competency standard for architects, which I think Jenny mentioned was released about a year ago, that really is going to be the foundation for all of NCARB's future licensure programs. So I definitely encourage folks to just start familiarizing yourself with it, because more and more what you're going to see is as NCARB starts pushing out other updates down the road, you're going to see more of our programs really tying into that competency standard. And so think of this as your first opportunity to really build up your own familiarity with those competencies and how, your journey to licensure fits in with those.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we talked about how when this reporting policy goes into effect, people's records are going to be automatically updated. We're going to retroactively apply the new percentages to their previously approved reports as appropriate. So how long should candidates expect that process of their records being automatically updated to take? Do we have any idea, Michelle?
Oh, such a great question. I don't have a specific answer about that at the moment. I will say we are actively working with our internal teams right now. I have my next meeting tomorrow, right? And so we are actively working on that to make sure that all of our systems are ready to go. My hope is that on November 18th, you're going to see updates in your record as far as those retroactive impacts. But I don't want to promise that until, again, we've squared away some of those details with our information systems folks and others within the organization. So know that we are working hard to make sure that when we say November 18th, changes go into effect, that also includes those retroactive changes. But I would say, stay tuned to further NCARB updates. We will definitely keep you updated along the way. again, really glad that everyone got, these early messages that came out from NCARB within the last couple of weeks. So just keep your eyes on your email and we'll make sure to keep you all posted.
Yeah. And I think to add to what Michelle was saying, as your resident comms person on this webinar, we are thinking that for most candidates, you're not going to have to take any action in order for these changes to go into effect. But if you are one of the people who needs to take an action to have something in your record updated, we will absolutely be letting you know. So if you get an email from us that has some next steps for you, be sure to read it closely. I mean, be sure to read all our emails closely, please. But we will tell you absolutely what you need to do. All right, our next question. For candidates who are just starting the AXP, do we have a recommended frequency for how often they report their experience? Gabriella, as somebody who has been through the licensure path recently, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would greatly suggest anywhere from a 12 to 16 week time frame. That's a 3 to 4 month. That's something that I just held quarterly with my supervisor. I would sit down, have my hours planned out, and in that meeting, you say, here's what we've accomplished, here's where we need to be going. So that was really easy for me as far as logging hours and being able to focus on my timesheets without losing too much time or sacrificing too much of my supervisor's time. But Michelle, you also went through that process. What did that look like for you?
Sure. That's right. I went through, I was the intern development program or IDP way back when, but similar concept to what we have today, right? Of just gaining experience, learning how to do things, reporting that progress as you go. So I think your recommendation, Gabrielle, makes a lot of sense. I will say I also was one of those people who reported a bunch of hours all at once. And I don't recommend it, right? It was a lot of trouble to go back and dig up time. And then you kind of wonder like, well, how accurate is this anyway? Am I really meeting like what this program is supposed to be all about? So I think thinking about what are those kind of regular check-ins that you have with your supervisor, right? And it's not about the weekly. I mean, if you start sending your supervisor weekly AXP reports, that might be a bit much. But maybe you have, quarterly reviews with your supervisor, or maybe as Gabriella said, maybe it's like every 16 weeks. What is kind of that normal big picture check-in that you're having with your supervisor anyway? And use that to guide how you submit your experience. Like we said, now with the change, you can submit experience up to a year old. I would not wait a year to submit that experience, because one of the important advantages of really submitting your hours regularly is it's a good check of how you're doing and if maybe you need to pivot a little bit in your work. So kind of think about that as well. Maybe in your office, it's sort of like an every 6 months, check in among candidates and supervisors, and whatever that interval is, use that as that opportunity to say, hey, I've gained all of this experience, but I'm really lacking in these areas. Let's pivot before I go too much farther down the road of earning more in this and not that. So I think it's a great conversation to have with your supervisor about what is that right time frame, but it is open-ended. I say anytime within 0 to 12 months, but I would err on the shorter side.
Great. Thank you both. Okay, our next question. Michelle, you were just talking about AXP supervisors. Will these changes have any impact on AXP supervisors?
Well, our AXP supervisors will certainly want to stay informed about the changes. And so for them, I would definitely recommend also reading through the future guidelines that have been released on their website, familiarizing themselves with those new competency-based descriptions for the experience area, so that way they know what it is that they are going to be signing off on. NCARB actually offers several courses which offer HSW credits for AXP supervisors. So we've got one specifically for AXP portfolio supervisors, another one for AXP supervisors, and then we have another one that's more generally about supervising. Those courses will be updated this fall to bring them into alignment with the updates to AXP. So keep an eye out for those. But I'd say as far as the process that supervisors need to go through in order to approve hours, that process won't be changing. But again, it will be important for supervisors to be as knowledgeable about the experience area updates, as candidates moving forward.
Great.
And don't be surprised with the reporting requirement change if you have candidates reach out to you from years back, right? So those are things too that are great to have on your radar. If you know you have someone who forgot to log their hours or missed them, that they could be reaching out to you and be a friend to them in that process.
Yes, great advice.
Yeah, great tip. Okay, Gabriella, the question we get whenever we announce program updates from our candidates is why? Why is NCARB doing this? So can you talk a little bit more about why NCARB is making these changes to the AXP?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to give you some of the background, there are volunteer leads who are in all of the program committees. They're in the in just about every aspect of NCARB you can think, right? And what's great is our board of directors leads initiatives at the beginning of the year during the annual business meeting and releases them to our committees to have as charges to explore. So when you're asking, well, why are you making the change? Why are you increasing the reporting requirement? Well, from a while back, we heard we need to increase the pathways to practice. And what does that look like? We're looking at it at a smaller and smaller lens, whether that is eliminating the rolling clock, or now modifying the reporting requirement, right? We need to look at it from every aspect that is how we do what we do. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that as an NCARB volunteer and encourage you all to look into it some more.
Thank you. Okay, next question. For that HSW CE opportunity under AXP setting O, if a candidate is completing courses that are not provided by the AIA, how are they going to go about reporting their CE credit to NCARB? Michelle, if you could take that one.
Yeah. So any organization that is offering courses should be able to provide you with a transcript of all the courses that you've taken and the credit that you've earned for them. So a little bit similar to like a transcript from college, right? So your CE transcript, similar type of report. And so broadly speaking, if you're taking courses through AIA today, you are required to provide that AIA transcript. So after November 18th, we'll still be looking for transcripts. We're just going to allow them from other organizations as well. I will say, because Jenny, the way you phrased it was a candidate is already taking courses with another organization. We will be sharing this fall the pre-approved organizations. We definitely want to work with those organizations, confirm that their courses are going to meet our standards, and confirm the documentation that they provide. So stay tuned on what organizations those will be, but big picture answer to the question is we'll be looking for a transcript from that organization that lists, it'll likely say, this was the course name, the date that you took it, the number of, hours of CE, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, great. And great reminder about that need for the organization to be pre-approved by NCARB. So more information, stay tuned, as Michelle said. Okay, our next question. So for candidates that have a report that spans that 100% to 75% requirement that you were talking about, Michelle, if they're going to need to contact NCARB to have that record split, when should they do it? Should they reach out right now?
Oh gosh, no. I'm trying to say that nicely. Please don't reach out right now. As I mentioned, we are currently hard at work with our internal teams, managing, what those processes are going to be, determining how we're going to do those. We know that we're going to be doing a lot of retroactive updates. We want to make sure that we have all of our processes in place. And, especially one thing that Jenny and I do a lot of is beta testing. To really take some sample reports, audit how those processes are working to make sure that we're not forgetting something or that some situation is slipping through the cracks. So give us a little bit more time to get those things squared away. We are definitely exploring all of the different types of updates. Like I said, my goal would be that there's only a very small handful of people that might need some manual updates, because I think to make this easier for everyone, we would love to be able to automatically update as much as possible and not require you to take some action to make this happen, as, Jenny alluded to earlier. So what I would say is, again, stay tuned to the future NCARB messaging. We will definitely be reaching out to you and probably more frequently as we get closer to that November 18th launch date. If you contact our customer relations team today, it's a great team of folks, but they're not going to be able to provide you much specific support right now. And they certainly won't be able to, pre-update any of your older experience reports. So I definitely advise just be patient. And after all of these changes launch in November, then definitely we'll be able to support you with any particular situations that still need support.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question. How has NCARB made sure this change isn't going to negatively impact the health, safety, and welfare of the public? And maybe both of you could talk about that one, but Gabriella, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lot of conversations on the time limit. So that's one thing that I really want to, again, connect with our supervisors and our ethical obligations as licensed architects to not only mentor the next generation and shepherd them, but make sure that they are meeting these competencies in the experience areas. So as we talk about not losing the integrity of the health, safety, and welfare that we have as architects, thankfully we have the education, experience, and examination pillars, the programs and assessment tools to meet those needs and qualifications. But again, it does go to the supervisor and candidate relationship to make sure that you're hitting those goals. Michelle?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you shared there, Gabriella. I think supervisors have a really important role to play in helping candidates gain that experience. It's certainly something that NCARB is looking at, for important goals for all of our programs, but especially as we move forward, is really thinking about the validity of our programs, which our programs are all about ensuring that candidates can protect public health, safety, and welfare before a licensing board awards them a license. So maintaining that program validity is really important for all of us. And Gabriella, you alluded to it earlier about some of the other changes about increasing accessibility. That's another goal for us as well, is, removing impediments, reducing maybe unfairness on policies to ensure that, all candidates have that fair access towards licensure.
Amazing. Okay, thank you both. Our next question, I think we've had a lot of questions about the HSW CE opportunity, and I think maybe from candidates who aren't familiar with that opportunity as it is now under Setting O. So Michelle, could you maybe just recap us on what exactly that is? Who approves the hours? Is it involved with your supervisor? Do you have to be employed? Just some of the basics of the opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So let's take a step back. Big picture, Setting O in AXP is a bunch of different opportunities where candidates can gain experience outside of employment at an architecture firm, right? And so we know for some candidates, maybe it's a tough job market, maybe they need some just other opportunities kind of in between working in an architecture firm, or candidates just want to get more varied experience, which is also fabulous. So within Setting O, I think there's about a dozen or so different opportunities that are outlined there. Some of them need to be approved by a supervisor. Some of them would be approved by a mentor. And some of them, we can think of them as sort of a special activities.
The specialized activities, those are your CE certificates that you can essentially pass through and show proof that you have gone through these HSWs with a third party or with AIA as it stands today, and then other parties as we move forward until November 18th. There's also the NCARB monographs, I want to say monographs that are available for you to do and then report credit for. And that is, again, those special activities you don't necessarily need a supervisor or mentor on. Michelle, did I miss any other than those two?
No, that was great. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cold right now. So
just trying to find out
to everyone. Yes, exactly. That continuing education is essentially your supervisor You don't need a supervisor sign off on that or a mentor sign off. It really is just submitting the, excuse me, submitting those transcripts, and essentially NCARB is approving that experience for you.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question, Gabriella, if a candidate is already AXP complete, is there anything they need to do once these changes go into effect? Does this impact them?
First, I want to say congrats for completing the experience program. That's amazing. But no, I mean, once you have, like Michelle mentioned at the beginning, once you have completed the AXP, these don't necessarily affect you because there's no need to go back and report hours retroactively. So you are in great shape, and congrats.
Amazing. Okay, our next question is really related to what we were just talking about. So I'm a supervisor at an architecture firm and want to know if the candidates I'm overseeing can submit hours spent attending CEUs if the firm isn't willing to pay for their time spent on those hours. And I can answer that one right now. The answer is yes, they can, because it is not tied to their employment at all. All right, next question. So we've talked a little bit about making licensure more accessible. So when can candidates expect more information about some of NCARB's other pathways to practice? Are we looking at education? Are we looking at the exam? Michelle, maybe you could talk a little bit about what else candidates can expect from NCARB in the future.
Sure. So I think our recent messaging included a little bit of information about some exam updates that we'll be launching next spring. And those updates, those updates are largely in parallel with the AXP updates about aligning that program with the competency standard, right? Because that is, as I mentioned before, the competency standard is really what's setting that foundation for future programs from NCARB. So just as we are, those descriptions for the experience areas are being updated with the AXP this fall. Next spring, we'll be doing similar set of updates on the exam, as well as some updates on the case studies to just create some more efficiencies for our candidates who are testing. Those are kind of the big things that are coming out right now. As Gabriella mentioned, with the experience committee, as well as with our examination committee and our education committee, all of those committees have received charges from NCARB's current board president about looking at future pathways to practice. And so as we start developing out other programs, I don't think there's going to be any other big things rolling out in the next 12 months for certain, because really we're taking that time with our committees to continue to discuss, explore ideas, maybe test out some prototypes. And I would say in the next several years is when we're going to start to see some other program updates. So I feel like I keep repeating myself, just continue to stay tuned to NCARB communications about all of that.
Okay, amazing. All right, and I think this will be our last question because we are getting close to time here. Gabriella, if someone hasn't started reporting their hours yet, should they just wait till November to start?
I always err on the side of let's go ahead and get it done now so you don't lose any time. Can you wait till November 18th? Absolutely. If you've got hours that are passed from a year to 5 years from now, you can wait to do it to then. I would say anything that is to date now, just go ahead and knock it out and stay timely on those reports.
Amazing. Thank you both. All right. So thank you both so much for joining us today and for all of your insights throughout the webinar. So before we close, I'd love for each of you to share a key takeaway that you want candidates to remember from today's webinar. So Michelle, we'll start with you.
Sure. The advice that I always share with candidates is just plan ahead, right? I've gotten my license, Gabriella's gotten her license. We can both say that it's a lot of work, right? This is not a thing that you just sort of decide, I'm going to do this, and then boom, you get it done. It takes a lot. There's a lot of different pieces to sort out. And the more you can start planning this ahead a little bit, kind of maybe you can't come up with your 5-year plan, but at least think about, okay, in the next 12 months, what are the pieces of this that I want to complete and then move on to the next part of it. The more that you can be proactive about your licensure goals, then, you know, the better chance you have that you'll get there, and you'll get there maybe more quickly for having done that planning.
Great. Thank you, Gabriella.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about supervisors today. Our word count's probably in the hundreds on how many times we've said it. So I'm just going to insert it a couple more times. Your relationship as a candidate with your supervisor is critical as you move forward. Do not underestimate. Of course, you have your mentors in the office as well, but be intentional about that time. Take the step out to ask your supervisor, hey, can we have a one-on-one time? Can we make sure that what I'm going to be doing for the next 6 months is in alignment with these new competency standards. So you make sure that you are getting the richest and most valuable experience as a candidate to move forward. And again, to the supervisors who are listening to this, be accountable and stay available for your licensure candidates and provide them the support they need so they can become licensed and join you in the supervisor pool.
All right. Thank you both. All right, so a big thank you to our viewers. Thanks for joining us today. I hope we were able to answer your questions. If we weren't, you can reach out to us online. You can find us at ncarb.org/contact. There's a form you can fill out, or you can give us a call, or feel free to find us on social media. If you couldn't watch all of today's webinar, you'll be able to find a recording later on our YouTube channel within the next couple of business days. And remember to stay in the loop, subscribe to our newsletter so you are getting those latest updates on the AXP changes and anything else to come. And thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.